Everyone in town knew that the old Hargrove house had been empty for 11 years, but no one talked about why. The house sat at the very end of Coldwell Lane, separated from the nearest neighbor by a quarter-mile of dead oak trees, whose branches twisted upward like fingers frozen mid-scream. In autumn, the leaves didn't fall from those trees. They simply turned black and stayed. The locals had stopped finding that strange years ago. Strange things had a way of becoming ordinary when they stuck around long enough. Marcus Hale didn't know any of this when he signed the lease. He was 23, fresh out of college, practical to a fault, and completely broke. $600 a month for a 4-bedroom house with a wraparound porch and a basement was not just a deal, it was a miracle. His friend Danny had pulled up the listing on his laptop and turned the screen around with wide eyes. "Dude, that has to be a mistake. Or it's just old," Marcus said, already filling out the application. "Or someone died there," Danny replied, "or multiple someones." Marcus submitted the application anyway. The landlord, a thin man named Gerald Poole, who wore the same gray cardigan every time Marcus saw him, handed over the keys without much ceremony. He didn't offer a tour. He didn't make small talk. He pressed the keys into Marcus's hand, held them there for just a moment too long, and said only one thing before walking back to his car. "Don't go looking for things you didn't lose." Marcus assumed it was the eccentric advice of an old man. He moved in on a Saturday in late October. The first day was fine. The house was dusty, but structurally sound. The wooden floors groaned underfoot in that charming old house kind of way. The kitchen was outdated but functional. The windows were tall and let in long rectangles of pale autumn light. Marcus walked through every room methodically, making a mental list of what needed fixing, what needed cleaning, what he could live with. There were 4 bedrooms upstairs. He chose the one at the front of the house, overlooking the long gravel driveway. It felt the most normal, closest to the exit, he thought, though he didn't acknowledge why that mattered to him. The upstairs hallway was narrow and ran the full length of the house. At the far end, opposite the staircase, hung a mirror. It was tall, oval, framed in dark, carved wood that had been polished so many times it had a liquid, almost wet look to it. The glass was old, slightly warped in the way antique mirrors sometimes are, giving reflections a faintly distorted quality, as though everything seen in it existed a fraction of a second behind reality. Marcus glanced at it briefly. Old mirror, he'd seen worse. He went back downstairs and unpacked his boxes. It was his friend Priya who first noticed something was off. She came over Sunday afternoon to help him set up his living room and stood in the front doorway for a long moment before stepping inside. "It smells weird," she said. "Old house smell," Marcus said. "No." She shook her head slowly. "Old houses smell like wood and dust. This smells like..." She paused, searching for the word. "Like something trying to smell like an old house." Marcus told her she was being dramatic. She helped him arrange the furniture, stayed for dinner, and left before dark. He noticed she didn't go upstairs once. When he asked her why, she said she just didn't need to. That night, after she left, Marcus went down to the basement to check the circuit breaker. One of the outlets in the kitchen wasn't working. That was when he found the phone. It sat on a small wooden shelf mounted to the basement wall, directly beneath a bare bulb that swung slightly despite no draft. An old rotary telephone, the kind with a circular dial and a handset that sat heavy in your palm. Cream-colored plastic gone yellow with age. The cord was coiled neatly, almost deliberately, and the red light was blinking. A voicemail. On a phone that hadn't been connected to an active line in over a decade, or so he assumed. Marcus stood there for a moment. He thought about what Gerald Poole had said. "Don't go looking for things you didn't lose." Then he pressed play. The message was scratchy, threaded through with static, but the voice was clear enough. A woman. Older. Her voice had the texture of something dried out, like paper left in the sun too long. "If you're hearing this, then you're already in the house. That means it's too late to tell you not to come. So I'll tell you the rules instead. There are 3 of them, and you must not break any of them." A pause. The static rose and fell like breathing. Rule 1. Do not go upstairs after midnight. Whatever you hear up there, footsteps, voices, your name, do not go up. Stay on the ground floor and wait until morning. Rule 2. Do not look at the mirror at the end of the upstairs hall. If you have already seen it, that's fine, but do not stand in front of it after dark. Do not look directly into it. And if you see something in it that does not match what you are doing, look away. Look away immediately and do not look back. Another pause, longer this time. Rule 3. Do not listen to this message a second time. A soft click and the voicemail ended. The red light stopped blinking. Marcus stood very still in the yellow light of the swinging bulb. Then he did what practical, rational 23-year-olds do when they're alone in a basement and unsettled in a way they won't fully admit. He laughed. It was a prank. Some previous tenant with a flair for theater had recorded it and left it there for the next occupant. Or maybe it was Gerald Poole himself. Maybe this was the old man's idea of a housewarming gift. Marcus went back upstairs, fixed the outlet, made himself dinner, and went to bed. He woke at 2:17 a.m. to the sound of the phone ringing. Not his cell phone. The rotary phone in the basement. He lay still for a moment, ceiling above him, darkness all around, listening to that old mechanical ring pulse up through the floor. It rang 4 times, 5, 6. He got up. He told himself later that he had no idea why he went down. Maybe curiosity. Maybe the ringing was loud enough that ignoring it felt impossible. He padded down the stairs in his socks, through the dark kitchen, down the basement steps. The bulb above the shelf was still now. The phone sat in the dark, no longer ringing. He picked up the handset anyway. Silence on the line. The dense, pressurized kind, not empty silence, but full silence. The silence of something on the other end choosing not to speak yet. Then, so quietly he almost mistook it for the static. I told you not to listen to it twice. Her voice, the same woman from the recording. But this was not a recording. This was live. Marcus's hand tightened on the handset. Who is this? Nothing. The line went dead with a soft, deliberate click. He stood in the dark basement, phone in hand, heart going at twice its normal speed. He set the handset down carefully, as though a sudden movement might wake something. He went back upstairs. He was passing the hallway mirror when he stopped. He didn't mean to stop. His feet simply ceased moving, the way they sometimes do when your brain registers something wrong before your conscious mind catches up. He looked at the mirror. His reflection looked back, and then he took a step to the left, and his reflection didn't. It stayed exactly where it was. Centered, still, arms at its sides, head level. While Marcus stood 6 inches to the left, his reflection stood in the original position, watching him with his own face and his own eyes and an expression that was not quite his own expression. It was smiling, very slightly, just at the corners, the way you smile when you know something the other person doesn't. Marcus ran. He did not stop to grab his keys, his phone, his shoes. He went down the stairs, through the front door, across the porch, and down the gravel driveway at a dead sprint. The cold hit him like a wall, late October, nearly freezing, and the gravel bit into his socked feet. But he didn't stop. He ran down Coldwell Lane, past the dead oak trees with their black, frozen leaves, out onto the main road, and kept running until the lights of a gas station burned through the darkness 2 miles away. The attendant inside was an older man, mid-60s, thick white hair, reading glasses pushed up on his forehead. His name tag said Earl. He looked up when the door flew open and Marcus stumbled inside, barefoot, breathless, wild-eyed. Earl looked at him for a long moment over the counter. "Hargrove House?" he said quietly. Not a question, really. Marcus caught his breath. "How did you know?" Earl took off his glasses and set them on the counter. He seemed to be deciding something. "Sit down," he finally said, nodding toward a stool at the end of the counter. Marcus sat. Earl poured him a paper cup of bad coffee and stood across from him with his arms folded. "That house has been on the rental market 3 times in the last 2 years, Earl said. "Before that, it sat empty for 9 years. Before that, the Hargrove family owned it. Margaret Hargrove lived there alone after her husband passed. Been there 30 years. What happened to her?" Marcus asked. Earl was quiet for a moment. She disappeared. 2013. No body, no note, no signs of struggle, just gone. Her daughter came to clean out the house and found everything exactly as it had been the morning Margaret vanished. Coffee cup still on the table, half drunk, chair pulled back like she just stepped away for a minute. And the people who rented it after? First family lasted 9 days. Left in the middle of the night, wouldn't say much. The father just kept saying the house was wrong. Second was a young woman, graduate student. She lasted 3 weeks. Earl paused. She didn't leave in the middle of the night. She was found in the upstairs hallway, sitting cross-legged on the floor in front of that mirror at the end of the hall. Just sitting there, completely catatonic, staring into it. Took them a week to get her talking again. Marcus's cup was halfway to his mouth. He set it down. Third was just this past spring. A man about your age. He called his brother from the house at 2 in the morning, completely panicked. Said he'd seen something in the mirror that he couldn't explain. His brother drove out there, but by the time he arrived, Earl pressed his lips together. The house was empty, car still in the driveway, phone on the kitchen counter, man was just gone. The gas station hummed around them. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. "What's in the house, Earl?" Marcus asked. Earl shook his head slowly. "I don't know what it is. I'm not sure anyone does. But I've lived in this town my whole life, and I'll tell you what I believe." He looked at Marcus directly. "I believe that house isn't haunted by something that lives there. I believe it's haunted by something that collects. People go in. Some come back out. Some don't. And the ones that don't..." He stopped. "What?" Marcus pressed. "The ones that don't," Earl said quietly. "I think they're still there, just not the way they used to be." Marcus slept at a motel that night. He paid cash at the front desk, took a room on the ground floor, locked the deadbolt, put the chain on, left every light burning. He lay on top of the covers in his clothes and stared at the ceiling and told himself it was over. He'd call Gerald Poole in the morning. He'd forfeit his deposit. He'd sleep on Danny's couch until he found somewhere else. He was never going back to that house. That was decided. He was sure of it. He fell asleep around 4. He woke at 7 a.m., feeling calmer. Daylight did that, pressed the night's terror down into something more manageable. He showered, changed into the spare clothes he'd grabbed at checkout, and sat on the edge of the bed with his phone. He should call Danny first. Tell him what happened. Danny would answer, and he'd say something sarcastic and grounding, and Marcus would feel even more normal. He opened his contacts. His eyes drifted to the motel room door. It was closed, locked, good. He looked at the window. The curtains were drawn. He looked at the bathroom door, slightly ajar, the light inside off. He looked at the small desk in the corner, the chair, the television bolted to the wall. And then, without quite deciding to, he thought about his apartment. His real apartment, the one he'd given up, the boxes he'd already unpacked in the Hargrove house. His books on the shelves, his laptop on the desk, his good jacket hanging on the hook by the door. He'd go back just to collect his things, just to grab the essentials. He wouldn't stay more than 20 minutes. In and out, broad daylight, nothing could happen in broad daylight. His hand was already reaching for his keys on the nightstand. He stopped. He sat very, very still and thought about what Earl had said. The ones that don't come back, I think they're still there. And he thought about the man who'd called his brother at 2 in the morning, panicked, terrified, certain he was leaving. And then something had made him stay, or made him go back. Marcus looked down at his hand on the keys. He hadn't decided to reach for them. He had simply found himself reaching. He took his hand away, set it in his lap, breathed. It plants the thought, he realized. It makes you think you have a reason to return. He called Danny without touching the keys. "Hello?" Danny's voice half asleep. "I need you to come get me," Marcus said. "Don't ask me to explain yet, just come." "Marcus, you okay?" "Come get me. Bring a truck if you can. We're getting my stuff out of that house in daylight together and I am never going back." A pause. Okay, yeah, text me the motel address." Marcus texted it. He set his phone down. He He looked across the room at the bathroom door, still slightly ajar. He stood up and crossed the room and pushed the bathroom door fully open and turned the light on. Just a bathroom. Sink, toilet, shower. He exhaled. He looked at himself in the bathroom mirror, deliberately, defiantly, and his reflection did exactly what he did. Raised its eyes to meet his. Breathed. No smiling. No stillness. Just his own pale, tired face. He nodded at himself slowly. Okay, you're okay. He went back to sit on the bed and wait for Danny. That's when his phone buzzed. A notification. Voicemail. Unknown number. He stared at the screen for a long time, long enough that the screen dimmed, then went dark. He pressed the home button and stared at it again. Don't, he thought. His thumb moved to the voicemail icon. Don't. He pressed play. The static, the dry, papery voice. If you're hearing this, then you're already in the house. Marcus went absolutely still. He looked up. The motel room door was standing open. He had not opened it. He had checked it himself. Deadbolt, chain. Both were hanging loose, as though they had been gently, carefully disengaged from the outside. The morning light fell through the open door in a pale gray rectangle. He looked to his left, at the motel room mirror above the desk. His reflection was already looking at him. It had been looking at him since before he turned his head. And it was smiling again. That same smile. Patient. Knowing. Like it had all the time in the world. Like it had already won. Marcus opened his mouth to scream, and found that he couldn't. Because somewhere between the mirror and the open door and the voice still speaking through his phone, he felt a thought rise up in his mind that was not his own. Calm. Easy. Familiar as his own heartbeat. Come home, it said. You forgot something. You should come home. Outside, the motel parking lot was quiet. A normal Tuesday morning in a small town, everything ordinary and gray and perfectly real. Inside room 109, Marcus Hale sat on the edge of the bed. His phone lay on the floor, voicemail still playing. His keys were in his hand, and he was smiling. 3 weeks later, Gerald Poole received a call about a new rental inquiry for the house on Coldwell Lane. He drove out to post a fresh listing sign. Inside, everything was exactly as it had been. Coffee cup on the kitchen counter, laptop on the desk, a good jacket hanging on the hook by the door. And at the end of the upstairs hall, the oval mirror in its dark carved frame reflected the empty hallway perfectly. Almost perfectly. If you look closely, and Gerald never did, not anymore, you might notice that the hallway in the mirror was not quite empty. There were shapes in the glass. Faint, like photographs left too long in the sun, standing still, standing together, watching the door, waiting.